All right, a very happy Thursday out there. Hopefully everyone is doing well, watching the NFL draft. I feel for Will Levis of Kentucky. I don't think he is going to get drafted in the first round just based on, man, all these teams that are picking, still to pick, and they all have a quarterback, unless the Cowboys are going to take him, and he'll become the Dak Prescott heir apparent. We are going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the Atlanta Hawks. They have been eliminated by the Celtics in 6 games, a competitive, I wouldn't say competitive first 2 games, but a competitive games 3 through 6. Game 6 was there for the taking. Boston just made some big threes down the stretch. Horford, Brown, Tatum made some big stops. Robert Williams, Jaylen Brown, blocks. So we'll do a little bit of a deep dive. The Hawks offseason article is up on ESPN.com. One-stop shopping. You can find all 20 teams in the offseason guides. They're not separate individual articles. Big picture for me for Atlanta. It feels like there was about 3 or 4 different seasons tied up in one. You went from the Murray trade in July. He basically won all in draft picks. You traded Kevin Huerter to Sacramento in a salary dump. I know you recouped one of those draft picks. Back from the Kings, that's protected next year in 2024. We'll go into their draft picks a little bit here. Travis Schlenk is out as GM. Landry Fields is in. Nate McMillan is out as head coach. Quinn Snyder is in at the All-Star break. So for me, I'm looking at from the All-Star break on as far as where this roster is. I'm looking at it for Quinn Snyder, basically looking at it as an audition for who he is going to coach into the future, who stays and who goes. Offensive efficiency went from 11 to 4, number 4 under Snyder. Defensive efficiency stayed in the bottom 10, right? So that's kind of who you are. That's your personnel. The million-dollar question, and that's everyone's going to want to know, can the backcourt of Trae Young and Dejounte Murray coexist? And Atlanta's going to have to figure that out soon because Murray's going into the last year of his contract. He is extension eligible. I would say it's highly, highly unlikely that he is going to sign an extension. He shouldn't, and I'm going to go into why he shouldn't. But that is probably the million-dollar question as far as from the roster standpoint, the state of the roster here. Trae's got $178 million. It's hard for me to think that all of a sudden they're going to pick Dejounte Murray over Trae Young. Who knows, right? But we're going to find a lot about, as far as if those two can coexist. Regular season minutes, 352 minutes when the two shared the court under Quinn. A minus 7.6 net efficiency, and 111.7 offensive rating. For comparison, only 5 teams had a worse rating. So I think you saw a little bit in that Game 5 when Murray was suspended and Trae Young was out there. Sometimes he's worked better without him. So they'll have to figure it out. Finances, not good, kids. Not good at all. The Bogdanovic extension, 4 for $68, all but guarantees that this Atlanta team is a tax team. They're right at the tax threshold. And then they have an additional $12 million in non-guaranteed salary. Bruno Fernando, Garrison Matthews, Tyrese Martin, including their first-round pick. So you add that up, you get to $174 million. You go over the first apron, you're only $5.5 million below the second apron. Tony Ressler, their owner, has never paid the luxury tax. Okay, and that brings us to the the top front office priority, okay? The new CBA is going to force this Atlanta team to get their house in order, to get their finances in order. And here's why. Of course, this upcoming year, the goal is certainly to be under the luxury tax, right? So what does that mean? That means that for probably the 9th year in a row, we're probably talking about the future of John Collins, right? It feels like we've talked about him every offseason since he's signed that extension at the trade deadline. Collins, hey, he signed that 5 for $125. He's got $79 million left, $25 million hit. if there's a guy that's not going to be here, John Collins is probably going to be the guy, and that probably gets you under the luxury tax. Now, here's the big thing. For 2024-25, you are, the Hawks, currently at $145 million in salary. And that doesn't include a new contract for Murray. So let's just say 30. Onyeka Okongwu, let's say 15. And Saddiq Bey, 15. So 15, 30 gets you to 60 plus 145. You carry the 5, 205. That gets you into the second apron. So that is why they are going to need to get their house in order as far as this offseason, because you've got some big financial decisions coming down the pike with Murray, Bey, Okongwu. And that's why I think Collins is probably the odd guy out. Extension candidates to watch, and here we go with Murray, right? And I said the new CBA didn't do any favors to Murray in the Hawks. 4 for 114. That's the most he can sign. Starting salary at 25.5. That's basically $17 million less of a max contract. His max number is 42. Is he a max guy? When you mortgage the future, sometimes you feel like you have to overpay. And here's the deal too. Different front office regime. Just because you gave up a boatload of picks to San Antonio doesn't mean you have to feel forced to all of a sudden just throw out a lot of money at somebody if you don't feel like he fits. You can walk away. Like, that's the beauty of it. You can walk away and maybe move Murray to another team. And I know you weren't not going to recoup all those. It's like that movie Draft Day when you trade all those picks and then you get them all back at the end. Probably not going to happen here. So Murray's extension eligible. I would say he is not signing an extension. 4 for 114. I don't believe he will sign that because the new CBA only gives you a 140% increase. You're limited still. Okongwu and Bey are extension eligible up until October 23rd. They can sign 5-year deals. Keep an eye on both of them. Atlanta has been aggressive with extensions. DeAndre Hunter, Trae Young, John Collins was not an extension. So keep an eye on your extension guys. Clint Capella is also extension eligible as far as October 13th. Team needs defense. Ranked 29th in points, paint points allowed after February 28th, ahead of only the Pacers. Allowed the second most layup and dunks since Quinn Snyder took over. Here is your draft situation. You have 2 picks this year, 15 and 46. 46 is from New Orleans. You've got, you owe San Antonio an unprotected first in 2025 and 2027. There's a pick swap in there in 2026. I would say focus on the draft. Don't get caught up in how much you gave, as I said, gave up for Dejounte Murray. And if you have to recoup some of them back and you move off Murray, then that is certainly should be on the table. They've got a top 20 in 2024, top 14 protected first from the Kings. Turns into 2 seconds. It's got protection for the next couple of years. They are allowed to trade their first in June in 2023, the night of the draft. Or they can trade their 2023 first and the Sacramento first, and then the next one after that is 2029. They've got 5 future seconds. So that is a big picture approach with Atlanta. Listen, considering everything that happened, I thought competitive-wise, playoffs, you've got a full season under Quinn Snyder. He gets to figure out who stays, who doesn't go. Figure out your backcourt with Murray and Young. The last thing you want to do is wait till you get to free agency next year and feel like you have to give $250 million to Murray, and then you're stuck with this backcourt that doesn't work. You've got to figure out the John Collins piece that gets your house in order with your finances, because Murray, Bey, Okongwu are extension eligible or going to be free agents here, and you're not going to walk into next year with $200 million in payroll. It ain't happening. Not for a 41-win team. Have a good night. Enjoy the draft. Hopefully Will Levis gets picked. I don't think that's going to be the case. We're already in 27, Jacksonville, and they got a pretty good quarterback right there.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.